It's time for Supply Chain Now Radio, broadcasting live from the supply chain capital of the country, Atlanta, Georgia. Supply Chain Now Radio spotlights the best in all things supply chain. The people, the technologies, the best practices, and the critical issues of the day. And now, here are your hosts.
Hey, good morning. Scott Luton with you here once again, Supply Chain Now. Welcome back to the show. So today we continue our coverage of the Reverse Logistics Conference, Reverse Logistics Association Conference and Expo.
There you go. The
center of the universe for all things returns and reverse logistics. So we're not in Atlanta. We're in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. So we're going to be continuing our interviews with some of the brightest thought leaders and supply chain leaders in the space, many of whom led keynotes and panels and participated. Some have exhibited, and we're going to continue that trend right here with our guests for this episode. But before we do, let's welcome in my fearless co-host, Greg White. He is a supply chain serial tech entrepreneur, supply chain adjutant, and trusted advisor. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
I keep trying to make up new titles, but I stick to the old ones.
That's good. I'll make another one for you that starts to feel more impressive. Okay. No. Look, hey, today seems to be Tech Day, right? We've talked about smart labels. We've talked about CES, and now we're going to talk to one of the leaders in technology in the world.
Yes.
Right.
And one of our favorite companies, one of the world's most admired companies, and we've had good fortune at Supply Chain Now to feature several of the leaders on past episodes. But before we introduce our featured guests, where can folks find our podcast?
Where can they find them, Scott? They can find Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, really anywhere you get your podcasts, including
YouTube. And be sure to
subscribe.
Deeper. A little deeper?
YouTube.
Oh, okay. I practice that
with
my music teacher. But, yeah, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. You won't want to miss conversations like this that we're going to have with Mr. Rich Bolger.
Mr.
Yes, absolutely.
He said to call him Richard if he was in trouble. Is he in trouble?
No, he is not in trouble.
Okay.
We didn't establish the ground rules.
We didn't establish for Mr.
Yeah.
Really, exactly, yeah.
It's the formal introduction. So Rich serves as Director of Reverse Logistics with Cisco Systems. Not Cisco the food organization, but Cisco Systems, which, as we alluded to, whether you're thinking sustainability or if you're thinking some of the most admired brands in the world, Cisco always ranks, sometimes at the top of that list.
More connected, but less tasty.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, boy. All right. So, Rich.
It's going to be a great day.
It is going to be a great day. Got to keep it lively. Rich, I know you've had a busy week here.
Yeah.
This is the final days. It has been a good week.
Yeah.
So tell us about, first off, where you're from. We already know. We've already done our homework for you. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I'm going to go off script. Bend that microphone in just a smidge.
Okay.
Yes. Perfect. And we'll edit that on post.
No problem.
So we already have done our homework on you, Rich, and we understand you're a big Rams fan.
I'm a giant Rams fan.
Really?
Okay. Yeah.
And it just so happens there was a famous Bolger that played quarterback for the Rams.
There was.
Right?
Mark Bolger. He played for University of West Virginia. And then he was drafted by the Saints, and he made his way to my beloved Rams. So a lot of people think – I'm going to go off on a tangent real quick.
Yeah.
But a lot of people think that Bolger replaced Kurt Warner.
Yes.
But there was actually Jamie Martin in between the two.
Oh, that's right.
So Bolger won the Pro Bowl twice.
Right.
So I still sport the number 10 jersey. I take my kids to go see a home game in L.A. every year. They've been to two in St. Louis.
Love it.
Every year we take our pilgrimage, and we still rock the number 10 Bolger jersey.
Wow.
He's diehard.
That is a huge fan.
All right. I've got to show you my Ram cave when we go off radio.
A Ram cave. I love it.
I've got a pretty impressive Ram cave.
So one quick side note. I told you I grew up a Rams fan back in the days of Jim Everett and Flipper Anderson and Greg Bell.
I did not know that.
Yeah. It was kind of a weird thing because
we never talk anymore.
Well, we'll welcome you back to the fold if you want to join our Ramily.
I love that.
Yep, my license plate in my Dodge Ram says Ramily.
Wait a minute.
Dead serious.
You drive a Dodge Ram with a Ramily
license plate.
Yeah, that is hardcore.
Yeah.
Is it blue and gold or is it blue and yellow?
It's black.
Okay.
I'm a black on black car driver.
All
so.
right. All right.
All right, so let's talk about real quick where you grew up.
Yeah, I moved around quite a bit. So I've lived in New Jersey, Tennessee, Missouri, Kentucky.
Why? Was that military family or was it?
I was a child of divorce growing up, so that moved me around quite a bit when I was younger in life.
Yes.
And then I joined the Army at 17, got out when I was 20. Spent some time with the Society of Automotive Engineers after the military, and then I met a girl who got a scholarship to the University of South Carolina, and that's where I started on at Verizon Wireless.
Awesome.
As a temp from Adecco, and I relocated with them 6 times.
I think you two might be separated at birth.
Really?
Rams fans.
Yeah.
And another common connection, University of South Carolina.
That's right.
Oh, are you a Gamecock?
He's a big
That's
one.
where I went to. No. Lifelong Clemson fan that graduated from Carolina. So that's a weird. The Air Force had a little something to do with that, as they always do.
I've got a guy that I've worked with for almost 2 decades. He got a undergraduate at the University of South Carolina, and then he got his master's degree at Clemson. So whenever he says something silly, I'm like, that's your Clemson degree talking. Whenever he's on point, it's go Gamecocks.
So
I bet he has some tough conversations with himself.
I'm going to steal that. So you moved with Adecco 6 times.
I moved with Verizon 6 times.
Sorry.
So Verizon had me in Columbia, South Carolina, then Charleston, South Carolina, then back to Columbia, then Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yep.
Then Greenville, South Carolina, before they moved me to Texas, and that's where I'm at now.
Wow. So were you involved? You told me something pre-show that you were part of the team at Verizon early on that got involved in the reverse logistics and returns, right?
Yes. So a little bit of history with
Please.
that. I started with Verizon as a temp from Adecco, taking bill payments in a store in Columbia, South Carolina.
Wow.
And then I worked hard and got a part-time customer service job, and then part-time sales, full-time sales. Was a top sales rep in the top store for Verizon in the South. Ran 3 locations. I ran that number 1 store. And then I became a retail district manager running 17 stores from Knoxville, Tennessee to Bristol, Virginia to Asheville, North Carolina. Of about 260 districts in the company, our team was the top producing team in activations, handset movement, accessory sales.
You made it happen.
Well,
you and the team, but
oh no, it was the team. We outperformed markets like New York, Florida, Southern California, because our stores were spread out, and we had to focus really hard to make our stores places that people wanted to shop. So I would go through without knowing what process engineering was.
Right.
We would process engineer the line. We would take phones apart, rubber band them together. We knew it took 47 seconds to do that.
Right.
And if you had 50 people on a floor, getting everything that you needed ready could result in a customer walking out.
Right.
So every morning we would prepare the store by getting our inventory ready to go, and then so I got really good at being efficient in processing.
Wow.
And really good at sales.
Yeah.
So I became a operations and marketing director supporting North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. It was a $6 billion region with 10 million subscribers. So a kid from Missouri who barely graduated high school, didn't have an online degree yet, got put into this role where I was supervising both operational aspects and marketing, which made sense when you thought of it. If we had a promotion that was coming out and we didn't have enough inventory for the promotion, someone like me could go through and say, well, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
More people should do that. By the way.
And it won't help you make dollars.
Yeah. And I became one of the first. There was only 2 operation and marketing directors that could see the business from that lens.
Right.
And part of that responsibility was continuity marketing.
So if I can stop you real quick, because I think what I'm hearing is you're a very unique breed that can come to appreciate and become very proficient and an expert at both sales and the operations side. I think the
problem solving too. I mean, you just did a lot of problem solving without a specific education towards that, or without a specific understanding of even what to call it. I mean, it's not like you had read a book and go, I think I'm going to apply that. You just figured it out.
But in the bulk of the workforce, I would argue, at least from my experience, is either you're sales oriented or you're very operationally oriented.
Yeah.
There's a very minority population that can really play in both of those sandboxes.
Yeah,
but
half my life I spent on quota. I've had a sales leader throw Waffle House applications at us when we fell from number 1 to number 2.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Now, the funny thing about
that's a Glenn Ross moment, isn't it?
Yeah, when someone throws 40 Waffle House applications at you and you fill every one of those applications out with the name of the person who threw them at you and turn them into every Waffle House in Columbia, South Carolina, which is like the Army. His phone rang for months.
Love it.
So, half my life I've spent on quota, and I actually got into reverse logistics from a marketing role.
So at Verizon.
At Verizon,
yeah. So after your days of driving revenue from a traditional sales side, you were moved over into the probably the earliest or some of the early reverse logistics teams at Verizon?
I was moved into this operations and marketing role, so part of my mission was to drive down return rates.
Gotcha.
Drive down discounts, to drive down the credits that we were giving to customers while managing acquisition marketing and continuity marketing. I got to do sponsorships like the Gamecocks and Clemson, University of Tennessee.
Yeah.
So that position was really unique. I wasn't just focused on retail. I had a business-to-business team that I had operations support for. I had indirect teams. And I told my boss, whenever he wanted to take one of the most aggressive sales leaders that he had and put it over an operations role, I'm like, do you really want to put the fox in charge of the hen house?
Yeah, right.
And what he told me during that interview has shaped kind of my professional career.
So on that note, let's fast forward to Cisco and this. How did you join initially? How did you join the Cisco team?
Well, I got involved with Verizon. I basically built their trade-in program back in 2010 when no one wanted to do it. And eventually I got moved into running the reverse logistics and global repair operation for Verizon. So processing about 15 million handsets.
Gotcha.
Running a very large budget. Applying tools, applying logistics processes, managing the contracts, managing the performance metrics, the KPIs that we needed to run the operation. So I did that for 2 years. And then my boss came to me and said, hey, we're growing this space, this trade-in program that no one really wanted to get involved with back in 2010.
It's hot now.
We had just hit a very big number. In terms of revenue off of the used equipment.
Okay.
And we were challenged with growing that number. So when she came to me and said, hey, I want you to run the monetization team, it took me 2 years to learn reverse logistics when I was over it. Going from sales and marketing to reverse logistics was like going from taekwondo to tennis. The rules of engagement were totally different. You had to be athletic. But my spider sense was going crazy trying to figure out what was a problem, what wasn't a problem. And then after I figured that out, she's like, well, hey, we've got all this excess inventory that we just made a lot of money on. So I want you to take that team and basically grow it by your entire operation and repair budget.
Okay.
So we did that, and we doubled that number in 2 years. So Cisco came after we won a Gartner Award to visit the facility. And they were one of the only company I can think of that got a floor tour to see the robotics and automation, the process. And I got to know the folks at Cisco, and I got to learn about their mission. Learning about Chuck's pledge, our CEO's pledge at Davos, where Cisco is willing to take back 100% of any customer's gear from anywhere in the world at no charge. It's a bold statement.
Huge.
You can do that at a revenue loss, or if done right, you can combine what is not only right for the environment with what is smart for business. So we went through, it was an idea sharing session. And then at the end of that year, Verizon had new leadership at the top, and they offered a package that was very similar to what I saw in the military in the late 90s, where they wanted to do a voluntary drawdown. So they had a retirement package that they offered to people who chose to go. And they advertised it, and in the reverse space, there's not a lot of people that understand the scale and how to harness it. So I had 7 job offers before I even had to click the button. And Cisco, funny enough, they contacted me at the same time, and Jack Allen, my boss now, said, hey, we wrote this job description because we thought it's what you did. if you're ever interested in making a change, let me know. And I'm like, well, did you hear about the package? And he was like, no, we just wanted to wait a polite amount of time before we tried to reach out and bring you on the team. So the cosmic stars aligned.
Wow.
And Cisco at that point was rated the number 6 place in the United States to work. They've since moved to number 1.
Right.
They've got a phenomenal mission. They've got a culture that wants to change.
They've got Jack Allen.
They've got Jack Allen. Jack Allen wasn't afraid to hire the furry guy to come in and run reverse. So the stars aligned, and it was like a day interview.
So let's talk about reverse logistics and what your team is doing at Cisco Systems. Tell us more. What's your approach? Or maybe a little bit about the company approach and a little bit about your approach.
Sure. The company is definitely driving towards a circular economy and sustainability.
Absolutely.
Right.
And they're an industry leader and
Yeah.
a noted industry leader for years now. Right?
Yeah.
It's easy to say circular economy. It's tough to understand what it is, and it's even harder to figure out how to execute on that play. Because in order to do that, you've got to fundamentally change the way that you operate your business.
You've got to first have some level of awareness. I mean, if there's anything we've heard this week, it's been that there's very little awareness of the breadth of what reverse logistics is about. I mean, it's I can't remember who said it, but it's not about end of life for the product. It's about new life for the product. Right?
Yeah, getting new to me product.
Yeah.
To the people that don't necessarily want the new gear.
Right.
But the used gear is a very attractive proposition. If I take my 2015 Dodge Ram, that I bought for $40,000,
that's black.
That's black.
That takes your Ramley out.
Takes my Ramley, and I traded in. If Dodge's stance on my old Ram was to take it and throw it in the chipper, because a used Dodge Ram could displace the new sale, then I would have $25,000 less in my pocket to buy the next new thing.
Yeah,
that's right.
And the person who wants a 2015 Dodge Ram is not necessarily
there is a market for that.
Yeah, there's totally a market. And the internet and a lot of organizations that are at this event with RLA right now are really good at matching used supply with the used demand.
Yeah.
So the gray market, the secondary market, I call it the green market, will never go away.
Yeah.
So all year long, I've been telling the story that if you can't beat it, be the best at it. And that's dictating our strategy, our investment. Cisco has a phenomenal manufacturing and forward logistics flow. And my mission is to make our reverse flow, when that product comes back, just as good as the manufacturing flow or better.
Love it. I'm ready.
I'm sold.
I want to run through that wall right there. I follow you. Yeah. Really. I mean, I'm kind of tongue-in-cheek, but I love how you kind of illustrated the journey to get there and some of the big things you did at Verizon and then Cisco. I love their surreptitious approach to having you on part of the team. And now you get a chance to double down and take their successful approach. Because I would say, you said it's easy to say circular economy. It's easy for companies to say that. It's easy for companies to say sustainability.
Yeah.
But the action behind it is often lacking. But not with your organization.
That's right.
And so now it's like you've got this great legacy, but now you're going to double down and go bigger, right?
That's right.
I think it's a good example of how culture flows through a company. I mean, we know Jack Allen,
that's a good point.
right? And if you think about what the charge is from the top, right, from the management at Cisco. You think about what we know about Jack and what we've just learned about you.
Yeah.
It's a very clear picture of how that culture flows through the company and accrues to the benefit not only of the company and of you and your fellow colleagues, but also to the world, because you're now dedicated to cleaning up your part of the world. Right? And with equal efficiency as the rest of the company is creating a world impact from the forward logistics, as you talked about. That's fantastic.
And I would also say not only the sustainability, but the most important thing I can impress upon this interview with reverse logistics is I am a driver of sales. I can impact the company's stock price
that is a great
through reverse
point.
logistics.
Yeah, it's not just a back office thing, right? You're not just trying to offset cost in the back end. You're actually generating value to the top line.
Well,
right?
think about the Ram illustration. If you took
I have a feeling you're not going to allow us to think about any other illustration than Ram illustration.
I've got tons of
I
stories.
bet you do.
But if you went through to the car market
Yeah.
and said, hey, you can no longer trade in cars and give people money anymore, we're just going to throw them in the chipper, that would fundamentally change the direction of new sales.
Yeah.
And back in 2010, when no one wanted to trade in phones, that was a battle to get people to, within the Verizon culture, to get a valuated trade-in program. Mm-hmm. We don't buy phones, we sell phones. And now the entire cellular industry is oriented towards, well, how much is my old thing worth?
Right. That's right.
And where I had to fight tooth and nail to get the very first valuated trade out the door in the cellular industry, if you try to take the trade-in program away, not only would your sales team kill you, but your customers would kill you too because they're acclimated to that.
So thank you for making that one big point very clear, because that we haven't harped on that enough.
But we haven't heard it. I mean, I wouldn't say we've heard it that much, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
That reverse logistics can impact the top line.
It's
of
a
the
sales
company.
drive. Sales leader.
Yeah, it's a sales driver. That's right.
Yeah, that's a unique perspective, and I think that changes and probably raises the import of how people view reverse logistics if they can recognize that it impacts not only the bottom line but also the top line.
Yeah. We're going to call it the Bulger principle moving forward. Seriously,
I like
you
that.
are the first. I mean, other folks have maybe spoken to it. I like how you said, look, this is the most important point made during this conversation.
Yeah.
So the Bulger principle moving forward.
I like it.
So before we – I'm sorry.
Just a story about how that trade-in program came to be. I was a marketing director. I had some operations ability, but growing the top-line revenue has always excited me. And we had a continuity marketing program at Verizon called New Every Two.
Okay.
Back when
two-year contracts. I remember this.
Yeah. If you had your phone for 2 years, we would give you $100 off the purchase of another one.
Yep.
And then when smartphones came out, that started changing the game because the price of the phone started going up so much, and the carriers were shouldering the weight of offering the subsidy offset.
Right.
So eventually the finance team, I call them the Army of Dr. No, went through.
Sales prevention team.
Sales prevention team. Went through and said, well, hey, that program's costing us too much.
Yes.
We're going to end it. And Rich, by the way, the new guy in this operations and marketing role in charge of preventing discounting, you are now in charge of making sure that the people that you work with and your customers don't apply that discount inappropriately. And I told my boss, I'm like, it's terrible because, we're not valuing our customers that are staying with us.
Right.
And he's like, if you don't like that, fix it.
Yeah. So
I initially attacked the trade-in program to try to drive market share. And I found a company, e-recycling, they're Hyla now, that wanted to buy phones. They had the infrastructure to do that, but they weren't involved in the conversation when the magic happened. Customers much more likely to trade in their car when they're buying a new one.
Right.
Customers much more likely to trade in their phone when they're buying a new one.
Right.
And if you can apply the value of the old gear as a form of payment towards the new transaction, well, now the world changed.
Right. Absolutely.
And, we went through, when I started this, all the folks were saying, well, no, we don't buy phones, we sell phones. We don't want to give discounts. We don't want to invest in infrastructure. We don't even know if this thing is going to make money.
Right.
And I talked my boss into giving me 2 districts of 15
to
try this. And we had to go through and build the valuation portal.
Yeah.
We had to find a way to duct tape and super glue. How do we pay customers for their old phone?
Right.
My very first foray in reverse logistics was
Yes.
how do I go through and get the used phones to the site in Indiana instead of where all the other phones go in Fort Worth.
Love it.
So we solved that with 10 slot boxes and green bags, green for recycling.
Yep.
And then what happened was after we went through and we were able to go through and buy a phone back for $100, apply that $100 towards everything else we were trying to sell in the store, the sales rose. And we made money on the used gear. We made money selling the new gear. And when I knew we were onto something was when we were at a review, horseshoe table.
Yep.
Region president in the middle, Dr. No Finance on the left. I was on the right with my binder of information, and every one of the 15 district managers had to come up and put their numbers in front of everyone. green, red, and where do you stack rank. And the 2 districts that had my program were number 1, number 2 in every one of those 14 categories, some of which I had Waffle House applications thrown at me for not doing well enough at. And the other 13 district managers complained that their results weren't as good because they didn't have the program.
Wow.
And then he's like, well, now you have all 15 districts.
There we go.
So we went through,
Wow.
we rolled it out, and then after that, we had to go through, and we were part of the panel, the firing squad, and the CEO, COO were there, and we had to go through and put our region results. We were one of 6 in the area, and our region was number 1, number 2, and everything in retail.
Love it.
Wow.
And overnight, it's like, all right, let's go through and roll
Something
it
tells me you like a challenge.
out.
I don't know.
So what do you think the pivot point was? What changed in the company's mind or in the consumer's mind that enabled this additional sales and for you to improve all these metrics?
Yeah. I operate off of 3 rules of rolling anything out. You've got to make it simple. Then you've got to prove that it works. And then you have to create an inspection point to make sure you can be viciously consistent when you get it done. So for me, the first investment in time was going through and talking to my sales team and saying, hey, I want to try this. What would it take for you to say yes? And Sales 101, if you can't do something in 30 seconds or less on the floor, a retail rep's not going to do it.
Right.
So very simple question. What are you doing with your old thing? And a very simple way to go through and see how much it's worth. And then when I was able to go through and prove that you could impact the sales results, this wasn't just one more thing that added no value.
Right.
This is one more thing that done right could impact the stock price.
Yeah.
And then developing the tools to simplify the process over time. It was not being afraid to get fired. I always joked, hey, I'm going to get fired for something. It's going to be something I believe in, but I'm not afraid to go through and try something different.
Yeah.
Love it.
Okay.
So, before we ask you.
Did you elbow him? Did you just elbow him?
No.
Oh, okay.
He said, Richard, stop it.
Richie's got he mentioned his spidey sense earlier. He's got a 5th sense. He can read where we're going. I hate to contain this conversation in the amount of time we have, so we'll have to.
Well, it just opens up an opportunity for us to have another one.
Definitely.
Yeah, there we go.
At some point.
Well, I think a lot of folks. So, a lot of what you're addressing, I think there is some X's and O's and some things that are directly applicable, of course, for supply chain reverse logistics, but more importantly for leadership geeks, like me, that enjoy kind of hearing some of the leadership, some of the bigger picture MO that you have. That could be a whole different conversation. So, but before we move on and get your take, on end-to-end global supply chain and some a key issue or two there that you're tracking, give us one more. So looking forward, based on where Cisco's going, where their reverse logistics is going. What's the most important thing moving forward that you see, leading your team to do?
It's a loaded question.
Yeah.
The most important thing that I need to do right now is build and prove. So developing take-back programs that are simple, reliable, and for our customers to get them to want to send me gear is one of the first things. How can I go through and ensure that I receive 100%?
Yep.
Data integrity keeps me up at night.
Yeah, sure.
So how can I
And
go
it
through
should keep more
Yeah.
leaders up at night, but
the first and most important lesson I learned in reverse logistics is protect customer data always.
yeah.
So developing tools to go through that are reliable, that are viciously consistent and repeatable to go through and do. And, right now I am building the reverse team of the future. So,
Love that.
We've went through and I've doubled the headcount that our team has had. Testament to Jack Allen's leadership, because he went through and he made a bold statement that we're going to go through and do this. We've got innovative leaders like John Kern, who has put real dollars around investing in these processes. So we go from talking about it to actually doing it at scale.
Yeah.
And there's no blueprint on how to do this.
Yeah.
So I've got to try things. I've got to fail. I've got to fail fast.
When you're an industry leader,
Yeah.
there's not a blueprint you're following. You're
Yeah.
building the blueprint. You're building the plane as you fly it.
That's right.
So,
Fail fast
yes,
and fail small.
There you
And
go.
fail small. That's right.
Yeah.
All right, so
And never with customer data.
Yes. And that's right.
I
Noted.
love that.
Yeah.
All right, so Rich, tell us if you had one thing in the bigger picture, right? Bigger circular economy, bigger global end-to-end supply chain management. There's one thing that really is intriguing you more than others, on your radar more than others. What would that be?
I'm going to go back to that statement that I made, that circular economy done right is not just good for the environment, it is smart business.
Yes, the Bolger principle.
Yeah, so how can we go through and leverage the value of a used thing to help sell a new thing, foster renewals, upgrades in data centers, transition to a subscription and software-based type of solution, and potentially use gear as a competitive weapon to go through and displace competitors' new gear.
Love it.
It's possible. It's been done. And I get to do it again in a great place.
All right, so I want to, what I'd love to do down the road soon, you are a outstanding case study for veterans, especially early one-term veterans that come out, and they're not sure what to do. They're not sure where they belong, so to speak, or what opportunities. You are like a walking perfect example of what veterans can do once they find just that, that first opportunity, right? So we'll talk more about that after the episode, but fascinating. So how can folks learn more about one of the world's most admired companies?
If you go to www.cisco.com, we've got a lot of information about our products, our portfolio, the direction that we are going, the links to our trade-in and take-back portals.
Yep, CISCO.com.
Cisco.com.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Thanks so much. We've been chatting with Rich Bolger.
How can they reach you?
Oh, yeah.
I'm on LinkedIn.
That's why.
Yeah, LinkedIn's usually.
Is there like a Rams fan forum that you're running, or
actually yes, Fort Worth Rams Fan Club is the Facebook group that you can join if you live in
Dude,
Fort
you're going
Worth.
to get about 2,000 new members. You better be ready.
So, we've got,
I love it.
We've got a really good Ram Club. First, it was me and one other guy.
Yeah.
And then the Rams got good, and I found other people wearing hats. And over time, in Fort Worth, we've got a really good Ramily.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's good.
So
just a little bit of passion here.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit of passion. I love it. I hate that we've got to be succinct today, but we've got a lot more to talk back when we get back. You're based in the Atlanta area or
Fort Worth?
Fort Worth.
Yeah.
Okay. All
That's
right.
why the Fort Worth Rams.
Okay. I was going with it.
Way to connect the one plus
I have
one.
an incredible guess for the obvious.
I thought it might have been one of stops in your career, but no, you live in the DFW area.
Jack lives in Fort Worth or in Atlanta,
Right.
and I got to go see him from time to
Oh,
time.
then you got to come see us when
I
you go
get
see
to
him.
Atlanta quite often.
All right,
Awesome.
great.
Rich Bolger, Director of Reverse Logistics at Cisco. Really enjoyed the conversation. Sit tight 1 second as we wrap up here. Greg, I tell you, I almost we need to be here like 2 weeks next time, all right, and hold people's flights over and make these 3-hour episodes so we can dive deeper into this stuff, right?
If the wind blows next week like it did this week, we may not have to hold their flights. They may be held over by the FAA.
That is true. So, to our audience, come check us out in person. We're going to be at a wide variety of events. You can find events ranging from Modex to the AIAG, which is the Automotive Industry Action Group, and AME, the Association for Manufacturing Excellence, a wide variety of events. And we've got a pretty neat global interactive forum coming up in March.
Stand up and sound off.
Yep. But the difference of that event is that's not your even though we're using a webinar platform,
you're the panel.
That's right. Our audience is the experts, are the presenters, are the thought leaders. So in that type of event, come prepared, no wallflowers allowed.
Yep. Spend some time thinking about something that you want to talk about.
Yes. And be prepared to stand and deliver. But you can learn more about that on the webinar tab at supplychainnowradio.com. Learn more about the events at supplychainnowradio.com on the events tab. And, check us out wherever you get your podcasts from. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify.
YouTube.
You nailed it. And subscribe so you don't miss a thing like the conversation we've had right here with Rich. If that doesn't get your blood and your adrenaline going, I'm not sure what will in the world of supply chain. So really enjoyed it. Stay tuned as we continue our live coverage of the Reverse Logistics Association Conference and Expo on behalf of Greg Wyatt and the whole team here. We look forward. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to you joining us once again real soon. Thanks, everybody.